Y'all killing me with this.
So now, let's listen to Bert bring up one of his comedian friends, John Crist. This one is going to be juicy.
Yeah.
On Sundays.
Dude, yeah, looks like Martin Short in that.
That is not John Crist. I'll tell you that shit right now, dude. I don't know who this comedian is. This guy looks insane. This is like one of those like inbreds from Great Britain. You know what I mean? This guy's like, chip, cheerio, mate. Just have some goddamn tea and crimpets. I married my cousin last week, yeah? This is not John Crist.
I still haven't seen that picture. I have no clue who that is.
His net worth is through the roof. He does like mega churches. Dude, that was the rub. When we started comedy, there's a guy telling you like, yo, if you work clean, you can do churches. Well, I never wanted to do that shit. There's a guy, John Crist, that did that.
Oh, yeah. He lives in Nashville.
Dude, he would do like a fucking Sunday 6 o'clock show in a mega church. It was like size, they were like arenas.
Yeah.
And just clean up. He made so much fucking money. He's a great guy. He got canceled. Did you hear this story? This is wild.
This is what we're talking about right here. This story that he's about to tell about John Crist's cancellation is a total fucking lie. Now remember, this is a comedian who was doing the mega church circuit, right? Cleaning up, just like Bert said. This guy was making ass loads of money. Now, if you can fake that, you can make that goddamn money. Now, who wouldn't want to do that? If they could do that, why wouldn't they do that? That's at least how John Crist was thinking, right? Now, Bert's about to tell this story about his quote-unquote soft cancellation. And then I'm about to bust that shit wide the fuck open.
Great guy. He got canceled. Did you hear this story? This is wild. I apologize, John, if I'm perpetuating something, and I love you. You know that.
Fan of the show. Friend of the show.
Look, he's apologizing now.
Soft cancel because I mean, when you hear this, you're gonna go, huh? Because he took a girl rollerblading, and he tried to kiss her.
That he got canceled for that.
He got canceled. Rollerblade. Oh yeah, you think that? That's why John Crist got canceled for rollerblading? You think that's why John Crist got canceled for trying to kiss some girl? Some poor Christian woman? No. That is not why John Crist got canceled. And I'm going to tell you right now, before I tell you the real reason why, I want to shed some light on how shiesty of a fucking person Bert is for sitting there lying to you, the audience, over this. Bert has to be aware of this. There's no way he's not. If this John Crist guy is such a good friend of Bert's, if Bert loves this guy so much, how would he not know about the real reason behind his canceling? So either John Crist told Bert a lie and Bert's just completely believed it without at least hearing about it somewhat through the grapevine, right? Or Bert knows the truth and he's flat out lying to you. I'll tell you why I feel like he knows the truth and he's flat out lying to you, because if it was the other way around, Bert gets seen with this guy out in public, Bert talks to this guy or something, one of his friends is going to go, hey man, you sure that you want to like be seen hanging around with that John Crist guy? Like nothing on him, you know? But he did get canceled for X, Y, and Z. So like maybe you might want to, you know, for your career, you know? Like you might want to, you know, calm down, you know, be careful is all I'm saying. I love you, Bert. Just be careful. Somebody's going to say that to him. Maybe Tom might say. So you're trying to tell me you guys got all these high-profile comedian friends. You guys know nothing about this guy's cancellation. You're going to sit there and believe whatever bullshit John Crist feeds to you about it? No. I'm not buying that in the fucking slightest. So let's actually hear about what Mr. John Crist did to get canceled. So I present to you Exhibit A. Christian comedian John Crist apologizes after sexual misconduct allegations. Now, if you just read that and you hear what Bert had just said, that he got soft canceled for taking a girl rollerblading and trying to kiss her, right? This is what Bert is claiming that the cancellation's for. So if you have that in your mind and you read this headline, you could be like, oh, they're just trying to call him trying to kiss her sexual misconduct. That's what they're saying. So this still might be the same thing. Look at this guy right here. You really think that that's all this dude did? You really think that this guy only tried to kiss a girl while taking her rollerblading? You think that? You believe that? I'm going to show you. This is not what happened, okay? This is not what happened in the slightest. So, right off the rip, I'll read you the first line. A Christian comedian and YouTube star has issued a lengthy statement and canceled his tour after allegations surfaced that he used his position to sexually harass and exploit women. So, you take a girl rollerblading and that's enough to cancel your whole entire goddamn tour? That's enough to cancel the whole tour. Is a girl being like, he tried to kiss me once, you know what I mean? That's enough? Wrong. Let me explain to you, the audience, a little bit more. So those allegations, right? Those sexual misconduct allegations, they include, but are not limited to, individually sexting multiple women during the same period of time. Whoa, this is a Christian man. What the fuck happened here? Not only that, he was initiating sexual relationships with married women and women in committed relationships. So this guy was also a fucking homewrecker. Then he was offering show tickets in exchange for sexual favors and repeatedly calling these women late at night while drunk. So he was also basically trying to engage in prostitution with a lot of these women by paying them off in show tickets, out of all things. And not only that, he then continued to harass them on a nightly basis while he was wasted off his ass. Isn't that funny? A lot of these hardcore Christians, right? A lot of them are real big alcoholics. You know, at least a lot of them that I met in my life. It's like they want to really nitpick at people for maybe like smoking a little bit of weed or committing a little bit of adultery, man. But they don't mind drinking a little bit of the body of Christ on a daily basis. That's totally cool. They get drunk, they beat the fuck out of their wives, maybe hit their kids a little bit. That Sunday confession comes around and the Catholic Church and Jesus Christ are like, you're good. You know what I mean? It's kind of crazy, right? And then they do shit like John Crist. It's a lot of hypocrites involved in that. And I think that, like, people like John Crist and kind of people like how I just explained to you are kind of the reason why Christians get such a bad name. And that's partially to do with, people thinking that you're stupid if you actually believe in Christianity. That's how stigmatized it's got. All because of hypocrites like Senor John Crist here. But this is somebody that Bert holds in a very high regard. So much so that he actually believed this bullshit story. Or at least he's trying to get you to believe it. Which I believe to be true.
Kisser.
That he got canceled for that.
He got canceled! Rollerblading!
It's like, but in their community, if you say that you're like a Christian, and I think he had like vodka in a water bottle or something.
Look, that was the same picture that they even used the picture from the article I just read to you. And they're sitting there feeding you this bullshit like they don't know what this guy actually did. Okay.
Yeah.
It's like, it really is like not that bad.
Number one high school move.
Yeah, and he got.
But when you're
canceled
in
for
it,
that.
you got to be in it.
When you
Look, they're sitting there going, when you're Christian, you gotta be Christian, you know? You can't be sexting, trying to get into married girls' pants, like trying to engage in prostitution. These are things you cannot be doing, But let's get beside John Crist and let's focus on our main man, Mr. Bert Kreischer. This is who we're really trying to focus on right now. So let's hear some of the stuff that's coming out of his mouth. Like the fact that he knows he's like not a good stand-up comedian. I never liked Bert's material. As a matter of fact, I've never liked Bert's stand-up so much so that I've never even heard that dumbass machine story that he tells like every goddamn set. It's crazy. Comedians, they talk so much shit about like beating a set to death. Like they'll sit there and go, man, did you hear like this guy? He's been doing like the same routine for like the past 15 years. He doesn't want to like expand on it at all. Bert's been telling that like machine story since he started stand-up. This is like every set he's doing this. He takes his shirt off every fucking goddamn set. He's doing all this. How's nobody getting sick of this already? I think it's more that people are attracted more to like the ambiance of Bert's shows because everybody's getting wasted and having a good time. So it's like college kids and like a bunch of parents that finally got a night off for the babysitter. They're going to go to Bert's show and turn it the fuck up. So by the time they sit down and Bert gets on stage, they're so drunk, it doesn't matter what the fuck comes out of his mouth. They're going to be like, yeah, man, it's a fucking machine, man.
From that day forward, is I was like, I will never talk shit about, like, I'm going to always undersell my performance and over deliver. So with stand up, dude, I've said this and I mean it now. I think I've said it so much I mean it. The only reason people think I'm a great stand up is I hang out with the best stand ups in the world.
I mean, you're hearing it right from the goddamn horse's mouth. This guy is almost like guilt by association. Like he's getting like the outside success from like his friends, you know? He's surrounding himself with like Joe Rogies, Tom Segura's, you know what I mean? He's getting himself in bed with Shane Gillies, you know what I mean? These guys, these are all big juggernauts. And even before all these guys came into play, he started his stand-up career after Will Smith like discovered him from like a Rolling Stone magazine article or some shit. Because he was like a Van Wilder-esque loser in college. Like Rolling Stones was like, dude, this guy's been in school for like 17 years. I don't think he's got a single degree. So they write an article about this guy. Will Smith's like, oh man, that's hot. We could make a goddamn TV show. That's hot, you know? So that's how his career started. Just a very lucky dice roll you got there. And since that happened, you know, right from the rip, Will Smith's name's been on this guy. So of course he's going to get something from that. Then he just happens to, you know, get connected with the bigger names. He's opening for this one. He's opening for that one. Now he's friends with Tom Segura, Joe Rogan. But so now he's like in. He's like a made man. He doesn't have to be good at stand-up now. Like I said, he's just got to get people drunk enough before his set to where he can get on stage and just say and do whatever the fuck he wants. So that's like crazy to hear him say that.
Shit about, like, I'm going to always undersell my performance and over deliver. So with stand up, dude, I've said this and I mean it now. I think I've said it so much I mean it. The only reason people think I'm a great stand-up is I hang out with the best stand-ups in the world. I mean, look at that. You surround yourself with great white sharks.
You're good in the storytelling realm too.
The storytelling.
You're not giving yourself enough credit.
Look, these two fucking jamokes sitting there trying to butter out Bert's bread, trying to butter bread. You know what I mean? Look, you guys don't have to, you know, do all that. Try to make this guy feel better about himself. Let him tell the truth for once. For once in your goddamn life, let this guy actually speak the truth, okay? That's what we need right now. And he's about to further his point by basically talking about how Joe kind of does the same thing. Like, Joe has this, like, hey, I want you to succeed more than I succeed mentality. He does that because he wants you to kind of have a reason to you know, be like, man, I owe it to Joe for that. You know? I'll never say something bad about Joe. He always had my back, you know what I mean? Like, Joe's like the comedy GOAT in my opinion. And that to me is why Joe has always been like that. And this is Bert basically saying all of this on air. But
that's Shane's destroying it right now.
Man,
and you hear people talk shit
it.
And you're like, "Oh, that's interesting." Cuz you didn't say that when he was opening for you. You didn't say that when he was younger. Now you're saying it. It's. I've watched it happen to a lot of people. I'll tell you what. I can just tell you who it doesn't happen to. Doesn't happen to Tom. Doesn't happen to Joe. Joe Rogan wants you to be more famous than him the second he fucking meets you. Joe was the most selfless individual. When we
look, nobody else finds that a little bit suspicious, huh? So Joe Rogan wants you to be more successful than him the second that he meets you. So he doesn't know anything. You could be the worst stand-up in the whole club. But he still wants you to do better than him. Why is that? And the whole reason he even made this comment is because he's sitting there basically saying, it's funny, you know, Shane Gillis, he's killing it right now. And people, they always want to talk shit when people start to make it, you know? Like people talk shit about Shane. I'm like, where were you talking that shit when you were opening for him? Or when he was opening for you? You know, where was that shit talking then? Then he goes to say You know who doesn't ever get shit talked? Tom Segura and Joe Rogan. What do we know about those two? I'll tell you what I know about those two and why they may not get shit talked as much as other comedians, right? Tom Segura kind of has the biggest comedy podcast network out there right now. Your Mom's House Network has a bunch of different shows on it. Your Mom's House is one of the biggest podcasts out, whether it's comedy or otherwise. So that show, there might be a lot of comedians that would hold their tongue to either get appeared on one of those podcasts or possibly even get a show themselves on that network, right? A lot of incentive for people to not want to talk shit about Tom Segura. Now, what about Joe Rogan? Nah, Joe doesn't have his own network, right? But Joe might as well fucking be a network in and of itself. This guy's show gets more views than almost any other show on the planet. Like Joe's not like competing with he's only competing with like India at this point. You know what I mean? He's only competing with like the most densely populated places in the world. Like, everything else doesn't even hold a candlestick to Joe Rogan. So, of course, there's another incentive for people to not want to talk shit on Joe Rogan. I mean, nowadays it doesn't hold as much weight as it used to, but you used to get on Joe Rogan and then you fucking made it, guys. You went on Joe Rogan, your career was like practically set after that. You didn't need any of that other shit, you know? So, it's kind of crazy, right? That he's sitting there saying, oh, Joe Rogan and Tom Segura, yeah, they never get shit talked. People shit talk Shane. They don't shit talk them, but nobody ever puts those dots together, huh?
I've watched it happen to a lot of people. I'll tell you I can just tell you who it doesn't happen to. Doesn't happen to Tom, doesn't happen to Joe. Joe Rogan wants you to be more famous than him the second he fucking meets you. Joe was the most selfless individual.
See, Bert's basically doing an example of what I'm talking about right now. Joe has done so much for Bert that Bert cannot say a bad thing about him. Bert, like, legitimately will not say a bad thing about Joe because of how much Joe has done for Bert. You know, Joe is the only reason that we are plagued with that fucking machine story. Did you know that? Yeah. So if it wasn't for Joe sitting there gaslighting Bert and saying like, yo, that's a hilarious story, man. Like, you got to tell that story on stage. Bert would have probably never told it. So you can all go and thank Joe Rogan for whoever was unlucky enough to hear that machine story, and you could definitely thank Joe Rogan for any of the people that were dumb enough to go and watch that goddamn machine movie out in theaters. I couldn't even watch the full fucking trailer. I saw Mark Hamill was in it. I was like, what the fuck world do we live in? Ethan Klein.
And hold my fart like a bong rip.